Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's video I want to go over a couple of things. Number one, a mistake people make when planting tomato transplants, and it's pretty obvious once you know, so I think this will help you out a whole lot. And then I want to go over two things that you can do that are pretty much free. You know, some people are going to say, well, water does cost money. That's true. Grass clippings as mulch or mulching and watering are the two best things that you can do to have wonderful tomato plants over the season, and they're pretty much free. A lot of people focus more on fertilizers and special amendments and, you know, taking care of the plant by giving them food, so to speak. But mulch, grass clippings, and water makes all the difference. I'll go over that in a second. The plants here are pretty well established. They were all transplants. At this point, they have established really nice root systems. They've gone down into the ground. They're starting to spread over the space in here. So these plants are well established. Well established root systems mean your plants can grow wonderful canopies, the wonderful greenery up top. You need strong root systems for the plant really to take off. I mean, you can't do it otherwise. And here's the example. When you are growing transplants, these are my tomato plants that I got in Portugal. They're going to be going into a special garden. These look beautiful. Nice large cells. They're growing fine. And when you pop this guy out, it has a wonderful root system. When we come in here, we transplant it. I have plenty of videos on that. Put it in the ground. The only roots that it has are these right here. And it's going to take a good 10 days, 14 days for the root systems to start going down and establishing outward, like the transplants right here. We've had 80, 90 degree weather for the last really 14 days. It's been hot. We haven't had rain. When you put in a transplant, 80 degrees sun is going to really, one, of course, hit the leaves, dry out the area, but the plant is going to be taking the water out of the root zone, and it's going to basically, you know, escape into the atmosphere. It's going to be doing what it's supposed to do. Because it only has this small root system, this root ball is going to dry out super quickly. It's not going to be able to access any of the water around here. So you could put this in today, water it in, 80 degree temps today, 80 degree temps tomorrow, and this plant's going to be starving, or I guess thirsty, for water, because it's going to use up all the water around here. So when you put in transplants, the main point is, the tip is to water these just about every day if the soil temperature, if the outdoor temperature is getting into the 80s and 90s, because the canopy is going to pull all the water out from right around here, and the plant can't access any water around there. So water your transplants more often. If you actually put a seed in, seeds do a little bit better because they send their root down straight into the ground, and the further you go down, there's more moisture. The soil always dries from the top down. So seed dropped plants tend to do better. They establish a great root system, and that's why sometimes you see a plant that was started by seed in your garden catches up to your transplants, because we drop this guy in, we think it's going to be fine, we water, we walk away. 3-4 days later, yeah, it's not been super hot out, but the 80 degree temperatures have caused this plant to use up all the water. The plant suffers, the root systems aren't growing, and you get weak looking plants. So this is what it's going to look like at the end of the video. And if you don't want, you know, the 10-minute explanation, bottom line is when we put in our transplants, they have small root systems. We forget that, and we often let them dry out, and it really harms the growth of the plant. So water your transplants just about every day to get started. 10 days or so, they're established, and they'll be able to use the water, you know, throughout this space. Mulching, I've always been talking about grass clippings, but people don't understand just how much nutrients these will give your plants and soil over time. But more importantly, it supports the worm life. Keeps a nice moist environment in there for microbes, for worms, and the worms do wonderful things for your plants. So it really makes a difference. And then watering, not really fertilizing. We can set our plants up so many ways with fertilizers to start. They do well, and they're probably, you know, good for the season. But watering, the more you water these regularly, the more you maintain moisture for the surface roots, the bigger plants you're going to get. And I will link videos in the video description to show you how to set up a tomato planting hole for seeds or transplants. There's so many ways to set up the tomato plant. So we do that. We set up the soil, we put in our compost, our amendments, whatever, they're established. And we water them in with a water-soluble fertilizer. Great, we got the fertilizer in. Going forward, it's not really about feeding these every week, every 10 days, every 21 days. It's about maintaining consistent moisture and giving the soil life food in the way of grass clippings. So, first thing that we're going to do is notice that I've been using grass clippings for a while. There's some shredded hardwood in there. If I scrape this away, the soil's pretty hard. You know, not where the plant was planted. You don't have to worry about that. You don't need to make perfect soil. The root systems are going to loosen this up. Worms are going to come in here, but you have to feed the worms. Let me put this back in here so it doesn't dry out. So we're just going to put down at this point another inch of grass clippings. Don't worry about seeds. If your grass has seed pods on it, or the weeds have seed pods on it, you want to cut the grass and skip that, you know, the use of that grass for the first time. Make sure there's no weed and feed or anything on here, but you just want to put down about an inch of green grass. That's going to break down. The green means it's full of nitrogen. All those elements are going to get to the surface roots that these plants have developed and they're sending everywhere. So they have shallow surface roots. So you can really save money just by composting with grass. If you don't have grass, you could use leaves, you could use different greens, but you do have to chop them up. You could use hay or straw. That will still provide benefit. There's still nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium in there, but you just want to set it up like this. When this turns completely dry, looks like this, you will do it again. So this is going to feed the base of the plants over the season, over the years, immediately, long-term, short-term, etc. Worms are going to love this. It's going to stay moist. There are going to be tons of worms in here, digging holes, excreting worm castings, using this. The mulch is also going to keep water in the soil. That is what your plants need. Imagine the sun, you know, when it hits us, or beating down on the plant. It is just pulling the water up from the roots, and it's all, you know, transpiring, I think is the word. Is it transpiration? Either way, it's about the water is coming out of the plant and going into the atmosphere. So you need to have the consistent water. So that leads to watering. I will link videos in the video description that show you how to better water your tomato plants, but it's going to vary greatly. What you want to do, temperatures getting into the 80s, you know, maybe every 3 days you're doing, you know, a surface watering where you're soaking down the top 4-6 inches of the soil. Maybe once a week a deep soaking to really get down into the deep roots. It's all going to vary on your climate, temperature, plant size. But once the temperatures are getting into the 90s, you still may want to be watering these every other day, and that's just to keep moisture in the surface roots. The surface roots are what bring in the bulk of nutrients, water, but the worms are going to love moist soil beneath this, and this whole little system here is going to take care of your whole plant. This was just a planting hole, a planting hole, a planting hole. We didn't over amend, turn, and do everything to the soil. Let nature take care of it. And you can see the plants are beautiful. If you want to subscribe and follow me, I'll be showing you how I take care of these plants. I just did a video on early pruning and setting these guys up. Notice the twisting. That's because I was late to tying the vine up and it was just crawling on the ground starting to twist. I'll be going over, you know, maybe in about a week, the second round of pruning for these indeterminate tomatoes, and then just talking about tying up the tomato and how you might want to do that. But these guys are nice and green. They got the fertilizer in the soil. Actually, they got compost and fertilizer. When they were planted, they got a drink of water-soluble fertilizer. They've been actually sprayed with an aspirin spray. That video's in the video description too. And they look good. But the keys, really, I want to stress it again. Green grass clippings if you can, any kind of greenery on top chopped up, and consistent watering. That is what's going to make the biggest difference. If I had to just pick one, it's watering more often than you think. That's going to create just the perfect root environment for massive roots, great canopy growth, and there's probably plenty of fertilizer in your soil already from all the stuff that you've been doing. But adding in the grass will slowly keep adding it back into your soil for this year, for next year, and it's kind of like a mini way to compost. If you don't have a lot of space, just do it right with the plants. This is all I'm going to really be doing. I'll feed them, you know, every once in a while because I like being that mad scientist that overloves their plants. But this is all you need to do. It'll really keep your costs down and you're going to have a great tomato harvest. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. And if you can, Don't treat your lawns, don't put chemicals on them. Use the grass clippings in your garden with tomatoes and all your other plants, and it's really going to pay dividends going forward. Thanks for watching.